What's going on, guys, and happy November. November is already here. 2 months left in the year. 2 weeks left in the format. Set championships are over, and Azurite C is on the horizon. So we will actually this weekend have a review of the cards released, or at least revealed so far. I believe there's almost all of them. I think 192 out of like 204 have been revealed. Go over them and talk about ramifications and what it could possibly mean. Anyway, today we're going to go ahead and talk about the tier list for the final 2 weeks and why decks are where they are. I'm not going to lie, tier 1 is, well, it's pretty well established and there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about. But there's a lot of rogue decks that you could have fun with in these last 2 weeks. So, before we get on into it, I just want to say we did start up on Metafy. There's membership with exclusive perks from custom playmats and sleeves to deck building with yours truly, and also we'll have some courses available if you so choose to do that. I'm waiting on deck-specific courses until we have a full reveal for Azurite C, because I don't want to go and do a big breakdown on a deck and tell you guys all about it just for it to change in 2 weeks. I don't think that's fair to you. So I'm going to wait on those types for now. So just bear in mind. And giveaway has been announced. If we hit 5,500 subscribers, so just under 800 by January 29th, my son's birthday, not just a random day, we will do a case giveaway. Yes, 4 boxes, 1 case of set 7, which should release in mid-February. So last time we did a case giveaway, it was a similar goal and we destroyed it because you guys are amazing. You are the best audience in the YouTube world, bar none. You guys are great. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into it. Our first deck is Amethyst Emerald Tempo. Amethyst Emerald Tempo. Where is this deck going to go? Well, it is going to... This video is completely opinion based and no facts or logic whatsoever. So make sure you go argue with me down in the comments below. It is going to be one of our tier 1 decks. Clarabelle is actually crazy strong. Ursula, another very good boss card that they play. Some of the decks not always play the aggressive early start, whether it's Merfolk, Banzai, Flynn, or some type of combination of them, but you don't have to. And the 1-drop Clarabelle even gives that versatility against item decks. There's just so much you can do with this deck, from that mid game that's strong with your Lyle Tiberius, with your Kick Cloud Kickers. Obviously, you have the draw engine of Amethyst. This deck just really does so much, and it is so consistent. And for that reason, it has performed really, really well, and it is in our tier 1 category. A deck that was hyped up a ton because we got our first searcher, our first card that can say, if you shift this card, search any card in your deck. That's got to be broken, and it's going to be absolutely meta warping, except it wasn't. And even in Blurple decks, it wasn't played in all of them. Where do I want to put Blurple, though? I think it's... Does it hit tier 2? I think it's back end of tier 2. For perspective, when I say tier 1, I look at roughly, 10% plus of the format. When we look at tier 2, it's typically like 2 to 9.9% of the format. And then Rogue is obviously everything that is under 2%. So just for ease of access, that is kind of the rough guidelines we go with. If we ever hit like 65%, that's when we start to get to tier 0 discussions. Jafar's New World. This is a deck I absolutely love, and I think it just doesn't quite have the player base. In addition to that, using ink decks, using real life events, using what people report to me and send me their results, which you can do, by the way, it just hasn't performed that well. I think the deck is really good. I don't think enough people play it. Could it be a tier 2 deck? Probably, maybe, kinda, sorta. Hold on here. We're gonna change you guys up here for a little bit. Nope. Come on. Move that up there. Is that better for you guys? A little more visible? A little more visible like that. Hopefully it doesn't distort too bad now. Anyway, hopefully that's a little more visually appealing and you guys can see, so I apologize for not being prepared and ready for that. The next deck we're going to talk about is Lemon Lime Discard, another deck that was just hyped up a ton coming into the set. It started to gain some popularity towards the end of set 4, and with the Bucky ban, it was like, discard's gonna be gone. Discard's gonna be gone. Right. Anyway, this deck was hyped up. It had a lot of cool new tools. Prince John's Mirror saw 0 play whatsoever. However, this deck did do really well, and it's probably one of, if not the best, tier 2 deck. It is just, when this deck goes off, I don't know if there's a better deck in the game. It's just, sometimes the deck just loses to itself. Our first of many Mufasa decks, Ruby Fasa. Where does Ruby Fasa go? It's the most popular Mufasa deck just because of all the strong Ruby characters, from Sisu to Maleficent to Tremaine to Medusa. You get the point. To Scar. There's so many good Ruby cards that just come in late game, and that's why Ruby Fasa is probably the best Mufasa. I'm actually going to put this deck above Blurple as well. I will try to keep them organized. Jafar is Jafar low rogue? I don't know. I think Jafar is one of the better rogue decks. I really, really do. Popsicle, tier 1. Nope, not a whole lot to say. Like I said, the best tier. Oh, look, another one. Ruby Amethyst, tier 1. Popsicle is just, it has a really good Steel Song matchup, that's for sure. So Steel Song being so good means Popsicle naturally has a good chance to do well. And, well, when you ramp into some of the best cards in the game and you can close out and board wipe and do all kinds of crazy things and just slap Tamatoas down, who knew that would be a good deck? And then you have Ruby Amethyst, which, well, again, the powerful Ruby cards, the consistency of the Amethyst cards, and until something happens to be prepared, this deck is probably going to be one of the best decks in every set. And, well, even without Be Prepared, it's probably going to be one of the best decks, almost said cards, in the set. I'm pretty excited for set 6, though. Are you excited for set 6? We're going to, like I said, we'll review the cards this weekend, and I'm going to just be brainstorming a whole bunch of decks, deck ideas, deck ramifications, all kinds of good stuff like that. And you guys can feel free to stick around, come back, see the video. What do we think? Deck profiles coming up. What do we got? 2 weeks? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. For sure, release week. We'll do deck profiles for new decks every single day. Maybe we even start that next week and we just get a jump on it and do like 7 to 10-ish almost. Maybe. Got a few other videos planned, and we take a couple days off as well. But yeah, we're going to have a lot of updated decks with the new cards and the reasonings, and we'll see if we can be ahead of the trend, a trendsetter, or if we're completely wrong and just really, really bad at this game. Hopefully that's not the case. Repeat, Pete's Bounce House. This is a deck that I loved so much, and I said it would be a good tier 2 deck, and I stand by that. I think it still is a very strong tier 2 deck. I don't think it quite has the push to be tier 1 right now. It's mid-game decks typically struggle kind of, and I mean, you can tilt this deck to be a little more aggressive too, and I think that can help it. And it's weird saying mid-game decks can struggle because Tempo I would consider a mid-game deck. Steel Song's kind of like mid to late. Ruby Amethyst is mid to late. I think this is in that slightly more mid game where if the game goes too long, this deck can struggle to close it out and win. And it also doesn't necessarily win as fast unless you build it to be a little bit faster. I think Repeat is an interesting deck because it takes a good pilot to do really well with it, and the deck building needs to be so precise. Like, for your event that you go to really is going to dictate, like, borderline, do you put the Maleficent package in, like Maleficent Smee 1-2 and get out really early, or do you go more controlling, like Broom Chernabog turn 1 and then coming back with other things turn 2? And I think your local meta, where you're playing, what you plan to go against, I think Pete needs to be built so specifically for them events. And I think that's why it doesn't see as much success as maybe people had hoped. However, it's been a pretty good tier 2 deck. I've taken it to multiple events and I've done really bad an event and then done really good at events with the same exact deck list. And like I said, it almost like hyper aggro. It really depends what decks you run into and how you build the deck. I think the toolbox is there. It's just so precise on how you should build it that I don't know if I would take Pete into like a DLC where you just got to be ready for everything. But like for your locals, if you know how and what most people play, I think Pete could be a really, really strong deck for you to take there, and one that pushes you as a player. Emerald Sapphire, sorry. Muses, Songs. I'm going to put this in the lower rogue tier. It's performed better than some of the decks that are going to be in the higher rogue tier. I fail to see why this deck is any good. And it's actually topped some of the tops it has. I know at least one was like a 60-person event, so it's not like it's topping 20-person events only and not doing good in anything bigger, but it has some bigger event tops. And I just, for the life of me, I don't know if it's because opponents don't understand how to play against it, and that's why it does well, because that is a huge thing. Like in a competitive scene, if you play a deck and people don't know how to play against it, you're at a huge advantage just like that. They don't know, like they might misplay, they might not challenge when they should, they might not quest early or play aggressive when they should, they might not hold cards back when they should. You know what I mean? Like if your opponent doesn't know how to play against your deck, you're at a huge advantage right off the start. Doesn't mean you're going to win, but you have a big advantage into that. And I feel like if people know how this deck works or how to play against it, I don't think it's a good deck at all. And maybe I'm being a little overcritical on it, but that's just how I feel about it. So we got a couple aggressive decks now. Amber Amethyst Hyper Aggro. I think this deck is crazy strong. It's really good. And man, this is one of the decks I'm most excited for in set 6, because once again we're getting more toolboxy cards. And without getting too far in depth and off topic on it, the Shift Simba is actually really interesting to me. I think that the location where you get lore when they're banished there is bait, because it only has 5 willpower. It's going to be so easy to take out the location. And I get it distracts them. They have to take out the location first and then the character. So maybe it sees some play, but I still like Rapunzel's Tower more as far as locations go. But the 5-cost Shift Simba is really interesting to me, because it quests for 2, and when he's exerted, at the end of your turn, you get to ready all your other characters. So you have the Bodyguard Simba already. This is why it's appealing, because of the Bodyguard Shift Simba. If you didn't have that, it wouldn't be any good. But anyway, so essentially you quest with your little guys, right? You have 2 or 3 little guys out there. Quest. 6 lore. Boom. Great. Piglet. 7 lore. Even better. And then you shift Simba and quest for 2 more. Boom. You just got 8 or 9 lore in that one turn. And now you have a 4/4 body exerted, and all your little guys get to ready themselves. So you just got 8 or 9 lore, and you got 6 or 7 more lore. Boom, just got readied. Your opponent better have a way to board wipe you or do something like that without challenging, because they're not going to be able to challenge them. So I think that's really, really interesting. Is it going to make it into a finalist? I don't know for sure. Maybe as a 2 of. I don't know. I don't think it's what you should bank on. I don't think that, but I think it's got some strong potential there, and I'm really excited for Amber Amethyst. I've said it in quite a few videos. It was the first competitive deck I ever played, going way back to last year, and I've always liked the aggressive strategy. So that's one I'm definitely going to touch base back on to for next set, and I'm excited to bring that video to you guys once we get more reveals and finish off all that good stuff. So then we have Purple Steel. Not only did this deck just top in Seattle, we covered the deck after Seattle, and the player of the deck even watched the video. So that is freaking awesome. We actually, out of the 4 decks we showcased, I think it's 4, maybe 5, 2 of the players that we covered actually watched the video. So I thought that was pretty cool. Where do I put Purple Steel aggro? Do I think it reaches tier 2? I don't. I'm going to put it really high rogue, though. I think the deck is really good. Like, as far as rogue standpoint goes, when it comes down to it, to be tier 2, I think it's hard for aggro decks to get out of the rogue category, just because they're so dependent on your matchups, on your opponent's plays. You actually the card pool is getting pretty good where you can build the decks that way. Another course I've been working on too is an all-inclusive hyper aggro strategy where we're going to break down like 5 different hyper aggro decks, mulligans, matchups, deck choices, texts, options, final lists, all kinds of great stuff. And that'll all be through Metafy. But again, I'm waiting until next set releases, so I just don't want to put stuff out there that's going to be irrelevant in 2 weeks. But that's a video I'm super excited for because just hyper aggro is just something that I've always liked, going back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Even. But Purple Steel I'm going to put in that rogue category. And by the way, anything in the rogue category, I think almost all of them are really fun, strong, good enough decks to have fun with these last 2 weeks. If you have a major event like a 5K, 1K, whatever K, or like case tournament, stuff like that, maybe you want to go into tier 1 or 2. But if you're just playing like at competitive locals, like even a win a box or so, I think these the top rogue decks here, I think it's worth it. Emerald Ruby, this deck just kind of is like a anti-meta deck, and it pops up like every format, and I think that's just kind of neat, kind of cool. I'm not a huge fan of the deck, but I think it's decent. I think it's not bad. It's not Emerald Sapphire. Like, I see the win condition. I get it. I understand why people want to play it. You know, it's just kind of, does your opponent have the answer? If they have the answer, you lose. If they don't have the answer, you win. It's really that simple. Like, I think that's just kind of how the deck comes down, and it's fun. Like, I don't mind that type of deck. I don't mind that type of strategy. I think it kind of will forever be in the rogue strategy because of that. Let's see, what else do we have here? Blue Steel, Blue Steel, Blue Steel. I said to watch out for this deck at Seattle. I said I thought it had a strong chance to make a good run. I even said 5 of them would top 64, and I was right. I thought a couple would have made it a little bit further, so I wasn't completely right, but I do think that it's a good tier 2 deck. I think it's right there with Amber Amethyst and Lemon Lime discard as like the top class of tier 2. Definitely better than Mufasa, better than Blurple, better than Pete. A little better than Hyper Aggro, I'll say, just because I think it's less dependent on all your matchups. It has bad matchups, sure, but I don't think that it's as dependent as the Hyper Aggro strategies are. I think Blue Steel is just an incredibly hard deck to pilot well, and that's a huge reason that it doesn't see as much player successes, because it's so intricate, and the play lines, and like, you just really got to know what you're doing, and if you mess up, you're in trouble, and if you don't mess up, you're going to get rewarded for it. Like Lemon Lime, there's a second one, and by Lemon Lime we mean Amber Emerald, Yellow Green, Lemon Lime, Sprite, whatever you would like to call it. Another Hyper Aggro strategy. You got Daisy, you got Maleficent, you got Merfolk, you got Banzai, you got Flynn, you got options. I'm going to put it in Rogue. I think Purple Steel discard is better. I did a top 5 aggro video a couple weeks ago, and I don't remember the order I put these two in. It was probably the other way around. Now I'm contradicting myself, but hey, minds change as things progress. I think it's a strong rogue deck. Like I said, it's really hard to put these types of decks in tier 2 or better, but Amber Amethyst is just in a class of its own when it comes to those type of decks. The first of a few, Ruby Steel, the pirate deck, the location version. Ruby Steel has so many ways to play it, and it's kind of neat. Where am I going to put it? I'm going to put it in rogue, like upper rogue. I'll even put it above a few. Would I go one more up? No, I wouldn't. It's an interesting deck. It's a trendy deck. It's a new, popular, up-and-coming deck. I've played against it a few times, though. And, like, I don't know. I've said it this almost exact sentence. I never felt like I was losing that game. Even when I was down 14-0, I never felt like I was in a losing position. Just the way the game progressed, seeing my hand, like, I feel like I should be more nervous, but I'm like, next turn, you drop this, then you do this, and boom, 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 and all of a sudden it swings back in your favor, and next thing you know, it's 14-8, and then maybe they got a little bit, 16-10, and all of a sudden you just control the board completely, and now it's 16-16, and it's like, yeah, I got this in the bag. maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Not every player is the same caliber as another. With a couple people I played on this deck, like I said, I never felt truly behind. I never felt like I was in a losing situation. And maybe that's just because the decks that I had been playing just have really good matchups into it, and that's a strong possibility too. So I don't want to knock the deck too much. I think it's a deck that you can go have fun with, and others have had success for it. It's actually been doing really well these last 2 weeks of week and a half of set championship, so that's pretty cool. Green steel discard. Green steel discard. Where do I want to put this deck, though? Because I'm actually trying to rank the top. It's top 3 for sure. The top 3 kind of this little triangle going to. Where do I want to put it? It's so... I'm going to put it at obviously tier 1. I'm going to put it ahead of Popsicle, though. I think these top 3 decks are so close to each other, and we'll get the other one out of the way. We're going to put Steel Song up there as the best deck. These 3 kind of just... for the last month and a half have rotated, like which one was winning the most and topping the most, and it's just kind of like rotating. And that's how a good format should be. As people plan for the best deck, it slowly shifts, and now this deck's performing better and they start to plan for that one, and then this deck's doing better, and you get that circle. And that's why Ruby Amethyst is so darn good, because it's just naturally good across the board and consistent. It doesn't have the peak of these 3 decks, but it also doesn't have the low slump of those decks, and that's why it, and even Tempo to a degree, I think Tempo is just like a worse version of Ruby Amethyst, kind of. Obviously, you don't have the removal, but yeah, I think Steel Song, I'm going to go with. It was my number 1 deck heading into the format. I think coming out of the format, it proved itself, it cemented itself, and it's placed itself there. Green Steel, it's hard to look at the format total and say Green Steel's the best or not in the best category, right? It's barely tier 1, but Green Steel really didn't become popular until Vegas, which was at the end of September. And in that time frame, it just shot up. Like, if you look at just October, this deck is right in the thick of things. It's right there. So, I mean, I think Green Steel definitely is a top 3 deck. The next deck we have, it's another Ruby Steel deck. I'm going to put this I actually really like this version. I did a build of this on my channel. A couple people did top with very similar lists. This is like taking the best cards of both. You're not using like Sharpshooter. You're not doing like all the location shenanigans, the pirate stuff. You're taking things like Tragic Hero, Be Prepared, Maui, a couple Tinkerbells. But you have an aggressive start too, because you can go like Hood, Smee, Shift, Hood, and that's a really quick aggressive start. You have so much you can do. The deck could use a little more draw power, I'll say that, but like you got a whole new world in there too. I think that version of Ruby Steel is the best version. I know it's not as popular, I get it, but having played all 3 versions that we kind of talked about, 4 if you separate the location, pirate, true pirate, whatever, out of all the Ruby Steel versions I played, because that was the deck I actually put together last format and really loved it at the end there. And again, had some people take it to set championships and do really well with it, so that was pretty cool. It was a deck that I was really hoping to be good this format. I just got to get my Tragic Heroes in real life and quit procrastinating so I can play the deck a little bit more instead of just at home with proxies. But I think that deck is just insane. I'm surprised more people don't play it. I'm not going to lie. I get that it's not as streamlined, and the consistency maybe isn't quite there, but I don't necessarily agree with that either. I think it's just a deck that hasn't been explored enough, and I think a good player playing that version of that deck, honestly, scary. Absolutely a tier 2 deck. To be tier 2, you need to see a little more representation. I'd love to put that deck up in tier 2, honestly, and maybe that's the deck I'm overhyping more than anything, but at the same time, I really think it's a strong deck, this format. Well, we have another one. Ruby Steel, Sharpshooter, Shenanigans, Actions. I'm going to put it in low rogue. I wanted Sharpshooter to be good. I read it and I thought this is going to be so good. And then I played with it and I'm like, this is so bad. Like, this is not that good. Even when you hit the card you want and you lose the other cards, it's like, I hit what I wanted, but I just lost 2 cards that I could really use. Um, yeah, it's not like Amber where you have ways to get your discard characters back to your hand, like Hades and things. I tried it. I wanted it to be good. I really liked the idea of Sharpshooter, and maybe it'll have its time in another format. I tried it. It didn't work out. It didn't go how I had hoped to. So I'm gonna have to put it in that lower rogue, unfortunately. And again, I'm not trying to say these decks, other than this one's bad. I'm not trying to say it's a bad deck. I just don't really trust it to do well, I guess, at a competitive event right now. It's a few cards away. It needs a few cards. Hood, I don't think Hood is good enough to be uninkable. That's my biggest gripe with him. I don't think he's good enough to be uninkable. There's too many good cards. Be Prepared, Medusa, Tremaine, Scar, Be King Undisputed. There's Whole New World, Zeus, Storm Rage. Like, there's so many better cards that are uninkable. And I think that's just my biggest gripe, is that he's uninkable. If he is inkable, I think the card and deck would be a lot better. Steel Fasa. I really like this deck. Being said, where would I put it? I gotta go back end of Rogue. I trust it. I think it's really fun. I think it's strong. We saw it top 16 at Seattle. That was really cool to see. We saw 11 Amber Steel decks, and only 9 of them were Steel Song. We've also been seeing Amber Steel aggro being a big thing, so that's pretty cool too. Since we mentioned it, we're going to grab it, and we're going to put it up here. Where do I put Amber Steel aggro? I'm actually going to put it there. That might be a surprise to some people. I've been playing this deck actually quite a bit and working on a build for my son to play, because trying to kind of introduce him to new mechanics, a few more shifts, some off characters interactions. He already understands like the bodyguard concept, stuff like that. But I don't know. I really like this bodyguard-esque type aggressive deck. Like, you have Smee, you have Daisy, you have not Maleficent, you have your Lilo and Daisy as your turn 1, 2 questers. You got like Smee. You can even do like bodyguard Kita into shift big Kita if you want to go that route. You have Baloo, Donald, Prince for your bodyguards on 3. Prince is a resist 1 quest for 2. That's really good with 3 willpower. There's a lot of really good things, I think, going for that deck particularly, and it's another one that I think had not been explored as much. I don't know if it quite has the consistency of Amber Amethyst, because Amber Amethyst, I mean, it has options for the consistency, but at the same time, you're trying to win real quick. You got the Chromacon, though. You got things like Dolores. Not that you should play Rabbit. I wouldn't replay Rabbit in Amber Amethyst. You got Friends on the other side if you wanted to, though. You got Bosses on a Roll. Bosses on a Roll plus Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom is so underrated in Amethyst aggro decks. I've been talking about it for so long now, and I actually started to see some topping lists using it. I'm like, finally people are realizing how good Get 1 Lore, put the card that says Get 2 Lore at the top of your deck is when you're trying to get those last 2 lore points. Like, between Goat, Gathering, and Boss, like, if you can get to that 15 mark and you see a Bosses on a roll, you're at 16 and you can stack your deck, you're probably winning that game. Like, that's how crazy it is. Anyway, we're trying to talk about Amber Steel. I think, like I said, the bodyguards, even into turn 3, you have potential for Pete. I'd only play like 2 or 3 Pete, because again, you're not really worried about like Be Prepared, right? Sapphire, Ruby maybe, because they can ramp into it faster, but like as a hyper aggro deck, you're not planning on turn 7. Like, that's not what you should be worried about. I'd say Grab Your Swords is a bigger thing, but even then, like, if you play like Hook even too to protect your Smee from damage or ways like that, and Daisy has 4, like, Grab Your Swords isn't even like a death sentence to this, because a lot of your characters have more than 2 willpower, and even like your Prince, he's got resist 1 and 3 willpower, so he'd only take 1 from the swords and quest for 2. I think Amber Steel aggro has a really good spot right now, and it's fun to play. And you even have dock as draw power too. Like, you dump your hand quickly, lots of little characters, and then you play your dock a little bit later. You draw 2 new cards. You paid 2 ink to play your dock. If he was the first card you played that turn, and you have a couple more ink, guess what? You get to play 1 or 2 more characters that you just drew. That's pretty cool too. Okay, almost done. Green Fossa. A few sets ago, this deck was like tier 2. Where am I going to put it now? I'm going to put it down here by like Sharpshooter. Again, this deck, I should just leave it off. I don't like this deck. Green Fossa, for a little while there, it actually started topping. Like, the 1 week, I think all of its tops came from that 1 week, and it wasn't even the same person. I'm like, is this going to be a trend? Is this going to stick? Are we going to see it more? Nope. Disappeared just as fast as it showed up. But anyway, not a bad deck. Amber Ruby Songs. Another deck, I feel like this is just like 1 or 2 cards away from being really good. For now, I'm going to put it in that low rogue tier. I think it's just that 1 or 2 cards away from being really good, though. Brooms. Where would I put Brooms? Do I put it ahead of this? I don't think I do. And if I put it behind the Emerald Ruby, I think we got to go down here. Again, this is rogue. This is rogue. It's all rogue. Keep in mind, this is all rogue. This is just personal opinion, putting it this way, and also having two lists, so that way that it was less likely to get all the way to the end, and then when it drops down, it actually like smushes it, distorts it weirder than doing it this way. So doing it this way just kind of to give you guys a cleaner look. And then lastly, Amber Steel Locations. The deck that just popped up, the deck that is Puerto Rico's pride and joy, I've heard. And it got top 32 at Seattle, and I think it was a great call. Our local group has talked about like location decks for a little bit here and there, and when's the right time to do it. And the pilot found the right time to do it. It was a deck that was refreshing to see. It was cool to see, and someone else then took it to a set championship and got their cards. So, Amber Steel Locations. Where do I want to put it? As cool as the hype is, as nice as the hype is, I'm still going to put it on the back of Rogue. I don't know that I think it had that surprise factor, that wow factor, and by the time people realize what you're playing, it's too late, because they have to try to deal with the characters. They have to try to deal with the locations. As they're dealing with the locations, you're dealing with the characters. And the thing is, you play so many locations that are like 1 and 2 costs. You can play 2 or 3 of them at a time, and all of a sudden that 6-7 willpower, it's adding up a lot and really fast. And your opponent's trying to take them out. And if you have your Long John Silver down, who's getting all of a sudden the resist and the extra lore for all your locations, like, it can get out of hand really quickly. I just think the cat's out of the bag, and it's more of a surprise wow factor deck. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I'm excited. Locations are going to be a thing this next set, I think. Like, we're going to see multiple location decks topping, and I'm not going to be surprised if we see 1 or more of them making a push on that tier 2 category. I don't think any of them are going to be tier 1, but I would not be surprised to see some location decks starting to push into that tier 2 category next format. I'm really excited for it. So if you're wondering, I do link my spreadsheet in the description of all my videos, as well as like Metafy and all that other good stuff. But if you click that link, it'll bring you over to this page, the page that we, tried to crop for you guys, and then we just distorted it for this. There we go. Almost. What? Oh. This is how I'm going to milk out my view time by just messing with my screen for you guys. Actually, that's hard to read, so we're going to make it better. You don't care about any of that information off on the right, do you? I don't. Anyway, so this is set championships. When we look at it and we can see, well, the top 5 decks, Steel Song finished set championships, known tops, not necessarily all tops. I don't know all the tops. I just know what information's available. 17% Steel Song, 15% Green Steel, Popsicle and Ruby Amethyst, each with 14, and Tempo with 10. So the 5 tier 1 decks ended up finishing tier 1 throughout set championships. And then we see things like Lemon Lime Song, which is basically the discard version. We see Hyper Aggro. We see the repeat. All kinds of good decks there going all the way down. If what counts as a top, this is more for not set championship season, because set championship season, I was just tracking which decks were getting their prize cards. And if you want to see, you know, more respectable numbers, I guess, don't look at the top 8 and top 4. Just look at the top 2 finishes and see what decks were doing that the most. You'd see like 31 Popsicle, 43 Green Steels, 35 Steel Song. So all of a sudden, Green Steel's running away with being like the best deck. Popsicle being the next, and then, or not the next, sorry, Steel Song still beat it out, but Ruby Amethyst all of a sudden dropping to 19, whereas again Popsicle's at 31. So you start to see this distance jumping between them, and Tempo actually jumps over Ruby Amethyst then, so that's kind of neat. But then you see things like Blue Steel and Lemon Lime discard with 8 and 10, where all of a sudden they're creeping up better when you look at it that way. So I mean, use this information however you want. Like, I just put it out there for you guys to use as you wish, as you see fit, things like that. And if you look at the very bottom, there is a little tab. There's total formats. There's the September. There's August. Set championships is basically October. And then, like I said, you can go on over here to, this is like the format total. So we see things like 236 Popsicle controls. Green Steel, again, it's further down the list because it really didn't see a lot of play until mid-late September, and then just boom, just flew up the charts. I think it's 152 total tops. Like, the deck just went off after Vegas. But again, all that information, I'm not going to go over it all, is linked down below. So if you want to go check that out, feel free to do so. Hopefully you liked the video. Like, share, subscribe. Like I said, don't forget the perks, the benefits, stuff like that of Metafy. And don't forget our giveaway, because what do you have to do for it? Be subscribed. Wait until January if we hit that goal. Do the task. You know what the task is going to be? Comment on a video. That's it. Be subscribed. Comment on the video at the time when we hit our goal. That's all it's going to take. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Leave a few comments down below. You know, algorithm stuff, confuse YouTube. Make it think I'm better than I actually am. And until next time, take care.